Coming on to alternative values, it's a book in 8 sections. Each section is headed by a haiku that is relevant in some way. The paintings are they were my challenge. What did I feel about my subject? Now, you might read the poem and think, that painting doesn't go at all. You'd paint a different painting. I would paint a different painting if I were to do it now, because I'm a different person than the one I was when I finished the book. But at the time, these pictures were my emotional, internal landscape response to what I was writing about. Wedding poem for you. I like that. My boyfriend squirms at this one. He's not here today, which is probably fortunate. Wedding poem for you. This poem contains the first time I ever saw you, standing, smiling, sitting, or just talking, looking into the eyes of other people as you spoke, or staring into the distance as if you were searching for someone, or walking with purpose, as if you were on your way to meet them. This poem remembers that I studied your ears for unsightly hair, and the profile of your nose for an unattractive bulbous end or excessive asymmetry. These were physical cautions that accompanied my observation of the size of your belly. If I could not get past that, there was no point in presenting myself. Also, your height and shoulder breadth. Would I have to defend you in a bar fight, or could you take care of yourself? The smell of your feet and the brightness of your teeth would come later if you wanted me, and if you didn't believe that I was the most stunning woman you'd ever seen, the Lolita of your dreams in every respect, then I'd have simply thought you ignorant. Whereas now we're marrying, I know you are a man of superior intellect. I'm sure you've all heard the phrase, if only I knew, I'd have told them, if we lose somebody or they move away, or I wish I'd done something but I was deprived of that opportunity. This poem is about that. One last kiss. You'll do anything for one last kiss, you say, but why? You had it, and you didn't know then that it was not to be followed by others. If that man, woman, or child were to be brought back from that other place of death or desertion or separation by some non-negotiable distance, and you had that one last kiss, what then? A pain of separation and departure all over again? Pain repeating pain, no joy for either? Do you really mean that in that one last kiss you would pour all your love and tenderness in order to assure that other person of the love you feel? How would that lessen loss? If that one last kiss is still the thing you long to give someone, then give it now before they're gone. Give it daily. Never be caught out for never passing on. The one last kiss you'd give just because you didn't know that's what it was. Ever since I was a teenager, I have loved motorbikes. I came on one today. But for years, I could never afford the lessons to pass my test and the motorbike at the same time. So I was always putting it off until I got old and craggy and, circumstances changed. Actually, it's a tax rebate. I got a tax rebate and that was it. I was off. So love poem for a motorbike. I'd always hoped I'd overcome the craving and forget about 2 wheels and an engine. During years in offices wearing pencil skirts too tight to allow the necessary overseat leg swing, I'd watch Motor Guzzies and Nortons go by, straighten the crease in my stockings and step in heels from a car. In an effort to release myself from the sensation that I was somehow other than the woman I appeared to be, and that the skin I wore was ill-fitting, I stopped looking at motorbikes, or motorbike magazines, or men on those machines. I told myself that motorbikes were not made to carry dogs and cats, or cart worldly goods from bedsits to flats. So I mothballed my plans for 2 wheels of any kind. No Kawasaki's or Harleys for me, just Fords and Subarus, the sort of vehicles that serviced life but dulled the mind, and life passed by. Although the wish for a motorbike continued like an inexplicable itch. Obscured by flesh, it tattooed my bones with an engine number of my own, beneath which black paint and chrome, pistons as heartbeat, ignition key like a compass, always the means to get home. And this was one of my early experiences. My father used to stop at bookshops with my brother and me in the car when we were very little. I'll just be a minute, maybe 10. I sort of guessed that some of you might have had experience of this. And 10 minutes would turn into 20, would turn into an hour. I mean, you pick up a book, you pick up another book. You know, they're all attached to each other. So there we were, my brother and I, and my father popped into another bookshop. And this is what happened. The rolling car. The crimson Morris Traveller loses footage at the hilltop. My younger brother sticking like an obstinate dough ball to the back seat, on which we will die. So I sit, pleading, unwilling to leave him as the street bottom wall speeds towards us in the periphery of my 7-year-old panic vision, gaining on us. My father is agape on the pavement, outside the bookshop into which he vanished an hour ago. Someone points, I shout, and he hurtles himself after the car and through the open window, pulling on the handbrake as if uprooting a tree. My brother remains mute, his face a stone on his shoulders, pretending he knew our father would save us, when really this is a one-off, and next time the crash is inevitable. At Cheltenham Festival, this is I've actually done it a couple of times since this poem, but it was odd, and again I was on a motorbike. And I wrote it, and the painting is about, nothing is ever all good or all bad, everything is always intertwined. And it was such a strange day that I did have to write about it. I arrive in the green room dressed in motorbike black to see my father gazing into my mother's eyes from every coffee table. I am surprised by the newspaper front page that has found a way to include them on the day I am reading. Unnoticed, I climb out of my leather skin to become red with a gold belt and sit to wait my turn. And when my hour is done, I vanish back into black in the corner of the green room, like a moth backing into its chrysalis. I slip 2 copies of my dead parents' faces into the box on my motorbike as a form of repossession and ride towards the mountains of Wales. A sheet of clear plastic as big as a bedspread rises from the tarmac on the other side of the central reservation, a spectre of involvement. It moves through the air like a jellyfish moves through water, across 3 lanes and towards me. Cars swerve and brake, but I see no escape as it swims into my lane. Its baleful edges suddenly open up, slip sideways, and swallow me whole. I accelerate to cut a pathway through this thing that has wrapped me like a roadside gift. My front tire rips through the synthetic skin, and the 2 sides separate. One flies off to another life, the other fixes itself like a flapping sail to my exhaust pipe. Even as I hit my hazards and move between cars to the hard shoulder, Now I am a boat in jeopardy, and the other ships parked for me. Peeling the threat from hot blackened chrome, I realize how the wrong luck could have ended the day. With more sense of life than when I left, my parents' talisman, I make my way home. The following two poems are very similar in the sense they're about what happens after somebody dies. And they're two of my favourites. In fact, a friend of mine recently lost her brother to cancer, and one of the first things she did was email and say, look, can I have a copy of those poems? Because you'll see why, I think. I don't know, it's a personal taste. For the living left behind. No one dead who loved you would wish your future years dismembered against the rocks of their departure. They would not sentence you to the guilt of betrayal for any moment they weren't uppermost in your mind. Nor would they wish you whittled down like a stick to pick the stony teeth in the open mouth of abject misery, daily, until you are nothing left. No one dead who loved you would want your still breathing carcass to be lost in the wilderness that spans the two worlds of the living and the dead, where you are neither dead nor living. They would not applaud your misery, but would weep to watch their loss made pointless by the waste of you. The dead become a part of us, our skin, our bone, our thinking. Their existence is continuous in us, and the best we do in everything as we move on from the moment of their passing. Step back from the graveside where nothing flowers. Do not undo the best they did for you. About loss. We borrow people by blood or birth, marriage or friendship, but that they are not ours to keep. We do not possess them. We have no rights, not even in partnership or parenthood. Sometimes they drift off like balloons caught in the breath of others, distracted by other countries, other friends, other relatives and lovers, and sometimes death. Maybe they polished us in passing, so we shone, but we are never less because they're gone, nor are we lost, for we remain. Our time together was never to be infinite. We disregard the truth of impending separation that manifests again in each relationship. Our illusion of in perpetuity, somehow ignoring loss of life, divorce, or simply falling out, or out of love. All beginnings initiate an end. The time between and the nature of that final severance are all that's questionable. If we live loveless in order to avoid the pain of loss, then our cowardice reduces us to shallow puddles of ourselves, evaporating. So love and let it end when it must. Be glad that time was had at all. It is part of you, this loss. It lends you history. Not meant to harm, it becomes your tapestry, and in this way you retain the missing and the dead in memory. They are born into the years ahead in the minds of others, and so discover the root of immortality. It's how we look at things, and this is really what this book is about, alternative values. How do we look at things that would make it better or worse for us? Because actually, it's all in our power. And so this book, I hope, encompasses a lot of the things that I went through with that. The title poem, I have a lot of animals and owls. I actually have 10 owls now. And I have plenty of opportunity to observe them as they work their way around their little lives. And one of the things I love about the owls is the way they move their head and they do that eye thing on their neck. And I've always wondered why, and I watch and I can see that what they seem to be doing is fixing on a point, moving their neck so they can see how the background moves behind that point to get a distance and a judgment, and then they can go and they can hit it, land on it, eat it, whatever. So alternative values. The owl does not always look ahead with eyes on the horizontal. Sometimes it will tilt its visual axis by 90 degrees as if checking the position of an object against its own foothold on reality, just as what we think we see is not always the truth. And we should wait for an alternative view to be delivered by word of mouth, the passage of time, or by shifting our attitude like the owl that knows it is all a matter of perspective. Thank you very much.